One more loss and I'll do this to each and every one of you. I want you here in uniform at 9 tomorrow. We're going back to work on fundamentals.
Fundamentals? In the middle of the season?
I thought the game started at 1.
It does start at 1, and you're a jackass.
No, I'm a pitcher. You can be a pitcher and a jackass. See, it's very common.
Bass is one of my favorite characters. I love his response to "You're a jackass." No, I'm a pitcher. It's because just moments before, he got hit in the head with a baseball bat, and he probably has a concussion. And welcome to Cinema Psych podcast where psychology meets film. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Swan, and today we're going to play a little baseball. Now, we have had a baseball movie on the show before, but this one's different. This one has supernatural elements, not really statistics. In this episode, we're talking Angels in the Outfield, Disney's lovely, funny fantasy movie about the then called California Angels in the early 1990s sucking real bad and getting a little help from some angels, some real angels. So not other angels on the team. It's very confusing, but it works because the team name is the Angels. Now, they were called the California Angels in the 1990s. After a stint of being called the Los Angeles Angels, the Anaheim Angels, then they were called the California Angels. And actually, a few years after this movie came out, Disney actually purchased the team and ran it for a little under a decade or so, and then sold it off to other buyers. But when Disney owned them, I think it's partly because of this movie. It also helped that the Angels are based in Anaheim. They're currently called the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. That's their full team name. I'm not making that up. So part of the reason why I think this works so well is because Disney made the movie, bought the team. It just synergy, absolute corporate synergy, right? So the premise of the movie is there's this kid who's in foster care, played by a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who prays to have the Angels win the pennant, which, if you're not familiar with baseball words, there's going to be a lot of baseball words here, so strap in. But if you're not familiar with like what it means to win the pennant, like I didn't know when I was a kid seeing this movie for the first time, like Angels win the pennant. I don't know what that means. That means the World Series? No, it actually doesn't. To win the pennant means to win the league that you are in. So there are two leagues within Major League Baseball. There's the American League and the National League. So to win the pennant means that you win the league championship. So there's an American League pennant and there's a National League pennant. And the Angels have always been, I believe, in the American League. And so they are attempting to win the American League pennant in this movie. And that's what Roger, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, is praying for. And the reason he's praying for it is because his dad, played by Dermot Mulroney, not Dylan McDermott, don't get them confused, says that they can be a family. So his dad will take custody of Roger if the Angels win the pennant. Now, the joke is when you hear that line, that it's unfathomable that the Angels could win because they are a terrible team. And they're not going to win the pennant by any stretch of the imagination, according to Roger's dad. And so that's Roger's dad's saying that they're never going to be a family, which is so tragic when you watch this movie as an adult rather than watching this movie as a kid. So it's been a while since I've seen it. I have watched it as an adult, but honestly, I don't think I've seen it in the last 11 years since my son was born. So like that whole dynamic was quite different for me, watching like his dad say that at the beginning of the movie, and then how the movie ends on a really high note for pretty much everyone involved, except for the sort of main antagonist of the movie. So the film stars Danny Glover as George Knox, a retired baseball player and current manager of the California Angels, who doesn't necessarily have a great coaching approach. And we're gonna get into all of that with our guest today, because that is their specialty. He's not a great coach, and he has bad blood not only with Tony Danza's Mel Clark. They have history with the Cincinnati Reds earlier in their career, but also J.O. Sanders' character Ranch Wilder, who is the radio voice of the Angels. So the home radio announcer, who's kind of a jerk, and also played with George Knox and Mel Clark. And they were rivals, and they're still rivals, and there's a lot of, back and forth between the two throughout the movie. And Ranch Wilder attempts to be a jerk to everyone he comes into contact with, even the children. So we've got Danny Glover, we've got Tony Danza, we've got J.O. Sanders, we've got Brenda Fricker. And I watched this movie with the kids the other day, and I'm like, hey guys, do you recognize the person who plays Maggie Nelson? Maggie is the short-term foster mother of Roger and the littler kid, JP. And they're like, no, I don't recognize her. And I'm like, that's the pigeon lady from Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. She had a big couple of years in high-profile movies, high-profile Disney movies. That's fine. But so if you're not familiar with Brenda Fricker, she's an Irish woman, and she uses her regular accent in Home Alone 2, but uses an American accent in this movie in Angels in the Outfield. And it's not super great, but it's somewhat convincing, right? Christopher Lloyd plays Al. You can call me Al. Honestly, it would be amazing if you hear him say, "You can just call me Al," and he takes the American League umpire's hat that just says AL on it, and says, "You can just call me Al," and I'm just like, that's "You Can Call Me Al" by Paul Simon. You know what I mean? So it's just, he plays the boss angel. He's the only angel who speaks. A character by the name of Hank Murphy is played by Ben Johnson. You may be familiar with Ben Johnson from the old movies. Yes, he's the owner of the Angels, and he's like a down-home guy. But yeah, no, he was an older man in the 1990s. He's no longer with us, but he was in a lot of Westerns in his earlier acting years. So it was a little joke on, you may remember him from. So I already said Joseph Gordon-Levitt is Roger Bowman. Now, I want to point out that blink and you'll miss it kind of early roles for some people. I mean, not really blink and you'll miss it. They do have speaking lines, and they do feature in many baseball scenes, both in the locker room and the dugout and on the field. We've got Neil McDonough in the opener. He's one of my favorite characters because he's so dopey. He plays Whit Bass, starting pitcher for the Angels. Adrian Brody, I did not realize that he had this role. He plays just a utility infielder who's just perpetually on the bench because he can't hit, Danny Hemmerling. And then, of course, my favorite early role for an amazing actor. Like Adrian Brody and Matthew McConaughey are amazing actors, and that's who I'm talking about. Matthew McConaughey, all right. He plays an outfielder named Ben Williams, who apparently, as center fielder, does not take charge like he's supposed to. If you're not familiar, the outfield is 3 players: the center fielder, the left fielder, and the right fielder. The center fielder is the boss in the outfield. If you have the center field position, you call all balls if you can make them. You have the right of way, so to speak, to catch balls anywhere on the field, especially if they're in, left center or right center. You are the boss in the outfield. That's the center fielder. And, Ben Williams here does not have a solid handle on that role, despite being a Major League Baseball player in the 1990s. Let's be honest, the sport has been around for 100 years by that time. So, you have professionals at all of these levels. Yeah, it's kind of funny. So those are like the 3 big ones of the baseball players and the cast. The film was directed by William Dear, D-E-A-R, and he did a number of directing and writing roles in sort of that 80s, 90s time span. Not to say that he hasn't been directing since then, but he's probably best known for his tight sort of decade filmography. Time Writer, The Adventure of Lyle Swan, Harry and the Hendersons, which I would say is the biggest name. And then he wrote The Rocketeer. So he did a lot of work with Disney and more family-oriented films, which I kind of like. The writers of the movie were Dorothy Kingsley, George Wells, and Richard Conlon. It's a fun concept, guys. I mean, the fact that we got Angels in the Outfield and Rookie of the Year all in relatively short span of time where children are a part of baseball, whoo boy, we'll see how that goes. So let's dive in to Home Plate, talking Angels in the Outfield. My guest host today is Corinne Hobbs. Corinne is a doctoral candidate at Michigan State University, where she studies the psychosocial aspects of sport and physical activity in the Department of Kinesiology. Her research is focused on the measurement and application of pregame speech and team culture. She plans on defending her dissertation project in the spring of 2026. Ooh, I love it. In addition to her scholarly pursuits, Corinne is also a certified mental performance consultant. I love how she put in the R symbol right after that. It's a registered trademark. Through the Association of Applied Sports Psychology, Corinne provides mental performance training to a variety of clients, including D1 student athletes, NAIA student athletes, semi-professional soccer teams, military ROTC cadets, elite triathletes, and high-level musicians, interesting, across the Midwestern United States. Corinne, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today. Huge fan of this show. And as a movie lover and, psychologist by trade, this is a perfect combo. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into our humanizing topic, as we were joking about before we started recording, we should probably tell folks that you and I know each other because your husband, Logan, is a former student of mine. And you both decided to skip out of Illinois and go to Michigan for grad school. You, of course, made the better choice in grad school. And, if Logan listens to this later, know that I love you, buddy, but she did make the better choice. I'm sorry. It's just facts have to be stated. Right, Corinne?
It's truth.
Yes.
Spartans are better than Buckeyes, period.
That too, right? That too. And so, there's going to be one Dr. Hobbs in that house is all I'm saying, instead of two.
It's truth. It's truth. But, it's all right. He's doing his thing too. He helps. He reads my dissertation. So
that's good.
We'll appreciate that.
He's useful in some ways. Absolutely. So you said that you are ABD and going to defend next semester, which will be, not to make this all about me, but it is my show, will be 10 years, probably to the month, since I defended my dissertation. So you've got that good luck from me.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah,
I'll put you on my shout out slide.
Isn't that cool? I thought
really
when
cool.
I saw that, I was like, oh man, she might be doing it in May. And we'll see. Because that's when I did it. Okay. Beyond that, how is your dissertation writing semester going then?
It's going really well, actually. Yeah, I'm so fortunate enough to be able to spend this fall semester and the beginning of the spring semester really just focusing on my dissertation and the job search. Woo!
Yeah.
Nice. But it's been really great to just spend time with this project that has kind of really been a part of my life for 4 years.
4 years.
If you ask anybody in part of my committee and everything like that, I think we're all kind of ready to be done talking about pregame speech for just a little bit. But it's exciting right now to be kind of in the nuts and bolts of analyzing the data, writing about it, so that I can kind of be excited about what we actually did find and kind of celebrate what we were able to do with this project.
Right.
So.
You doing the whole pomp and circumstance of defending, but your committee being able to take that time to celebrate that, hey, we finally reached the end point of this journey, right? Doesn't mean that anything is done after that, but it represents the culmination of those 4 years that you worked on this project.
Yeah. And it's kind of exciting to think about what to explore next, right?
Yeah.
When you spend this time with a dissertation project, you are kind of laser focused. So
yeah, exactly. And so when have you started writing the discussion yet?
Yes, actually, just this week. So it's right on the tip of the dome. So.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so this is where you're going to ask those follow-up questions. This is where you're going to say, what do I want to do next with the things that I know, things that I know now. And it could also be like, I am done with this topic for a few years now. And for some people, and for me in particular, I actually, I had to do that for my own sanity. And that's when I sort of had this beginning ideas for the podcast. So those will come. Not to give you any heebie-jeebies about writing the dissertation or anything like that. I don't want anyone to have to do what I did and write it in a month.
Yeah, thankfully I have a little more than a month, which is great. So I can take my time.
I am so happy for you on that front because man, oh man, I do not recommend writing a dissertation in a month. Absolutely not.
Sounds exhausting for sure.
Yeah.
Angel's still your team?
Yeah.
You're in last place.
Yeah.
Runs in the blood. Family that likes losers. So, I came to say that I'm going up north. I know I said when I came it'd be to get you, but things ain't working out that way. I did what I could with you. Maybe if your mom was alive, it'd be different. They had me sign this paper, some kind of release thing. Just gotta go to court to make it final. You understand what I'm saying, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Where's the pickup?
I traded it in. The bike's better for traveling.
Dad, when are we gonna be a family again?
Where I'm sitting, I'd say when the Angels win the pennant. You stay out of trouble, son.
So let's pivot to a slightly more sporting topic, if you will, because as much as science is great, it is not sporting at all. Even if you try to infuse sports into it, that's just my take. That's my opinion. You might disagree with that, and that's okay. So let's talk Angels in the Outfield. Corinne, let's talk Angels in the Outfield. Now, that's our of course, our sporting movie, folks. This movie, 1994. Tell us what you think about the movie, Corinne.
So just off the top of the dome, it's such a delightful movie. It's just so fun and so charming. And as a sport movie, it's actually interesting to think about how many baseball movies there are.
There are a lot of baseball movies.
Very similar in terms of the story that's going on and things like that. But I mean, you have all these great actors that are so young that are just having a great time on the ball field. And it's a delightful watch. So
what did you think of the acting watching it as an adult?
Yeah. Honestly, it held up more so than I thought.
Okay.
I watched this when I was a kid initially. That was my first watch as a child, probably at my grandparents' house because my grandpa, big baseball fan, whole family's from St. Louis. So we love it. We're here for all the baseball. And so as a kid, you watch it, you're like, Angels, how fun. I love this. And then growing up, I was like, okay, it's okay. The acting it's there, but it's, it serves the purpose for the movie. I feel like, it's, no one's winning an Oscar for this one, but it's exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah. It's appropriately campy, I think is a good way to phrase it.
Yes.
They knew they were making a Disney movie and it wasn't going to be an accurate representation of baseball at all.
No, not at all. No, minus the uniforms that I believe, MLB had to sign all these permissions and whatnot so that they could actually be there and wear those uniforms. But other than that, I think the realism kind of minimal.
Yes, they caught balls in gloves and they hit balls with bats and those balls were baseballs, right? I think that's something you can say about how baseball is represented in this movie. So, I watched it and I was like, wow, This is so dopey. And I want to say that Neil McDonough as Bass and his pre-mound ritual and his every pitch ritual is amazing stuff. And it's a tragedy that you have like the three featured baseball players, excluding Tony Danza, because he was top billed, were up-and-coming stars, Matthew McConaughey and Adrian Brody. And then he's probably the one who only does the character acting, right? He's never a leading guy. And that makes me so sad because he was the best one out of the three.
He really was. I mean, that slide up to the mound, like, what are we doing?
Yes.
If I'm an athletic trainer, I see that and I'm like, please don't hurt yourself right before you go and
Right?
pitch in a Major League Baseball game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's just asking for trouble. He's also asking with that every pitch windup that he does, always from the stretch as well. He's risking a balk every single time.
Yeah.
Like he's going to throw the
like,
ball. Oh, he didn't throw the ball. Oh, okay. Well, take your base.
Yep.
Anyone could make that argument. Baseball players
truly.
now would be up in arms about that move, even before the umps were.
Truly. And that's, also why we got a pitch clock now, right? We can't be taking all that time
he would
to
be
do
in
it.
trouble for it. Yeah.
But it is so interesting, like the pregame routine or the pre-pitch routine that he has. Like it is clearly very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same every time.
Yeah.
He's doing it, whether or not anybody else wants him to. And you must think it has to help him at least a little bit because he's their lead pitcher. He's the one they keep using.
Yeah.
So.
He is a professional baseball player, right?
Yeah.
Whit Bass takes the mound with his trademark slide. His oddball antics are by now well known to the fans.
That's right, Ranch. This season alone, we've seen him lick dirt, eat bugs, and floss his catcher's teeth in the dugout.
None of that, may I add, seems to have helped his pitching. He's 2-11.
Leading off for the Blue Jays, number 22, third baseman, Corinne Farley.
And after hardly any warm-up, Bass signals he's ready.
Huh? Come on! Let me have some. Yes.
Bass sets, and sets, and sets again.
Please, just throw the ball.
So you are getting your doctoral degree with a specialty in, if I may, sports psychology, just sort of using that term broadly, from a kinesiology department, which is a very recent setup. This has not been the case, for many, many years. If you were doing sports psychology, you were probably in a psychology department, and you were probably one of 5 sports psychologists in the world. And then I think kinesiologists saw the benefit of how psychology can be applied to athletics, and a lot goes into sports, right? It's not just the physical act of performing the rules of the game, right? But it's, we've got a ton of team sports. They're by far the most popular of all time because of how you can organize teams. But we have the dynamics between the players on those teams. We have the coaches dynamic with the players, the coaches dynamic with the other coaches, and their dynamics with the team. I mean, it is, and ownership and the money aspect of all it is crazy how much psychology can contribute to just the human body and its actions, right? So you're doing all of this, and we spoke about it, and you're like, well, this is what I'm doing with the team talk, basically. And you gave me a couple of options. Why was Angels in the Outfield one of those options?
Angels in the Outfield was one of those options because for my work, what I do as a researcher is I look at a pregame speech, but I'm also really interested in team culture as it relates to the broader conversation, especially in sports psychology, about group dynamics.
Yeah.
And the way I kind of summarize my research interests is that I think about how the media especially portrays the things that are the be all end all of sport performance.
Okay.
Especially think about when you watch March Madness and you have people and they're like, oh, is the culture, I'm here at Michigan State and everyone's always talking about the culture that Tom Izzo has built, right, for basketball and how big that is and how important that is to the team's long-term success.
Okay.
And I don't disagree with that by any means because, but when you come down to it, when you look at the research and you say, show me a journal article on how that is true. There's actually such a limited amount in there. People doing all different kinds of stuff. So, but to me, I'm like, this phrase that comes up in pop culture all the time, team culture. Like, what is that? You know, same thing with the pregame speech. It's like, oh, he gave them a really good pregame speech. That's why they went out and did so good. And so when thinking about some sport movie options, because there's a lot and they're all good for various reasons, but especially the topic of pregame speech. When you think pregame speech, like people are like classic Disney cinematic pregame speech. They go out and they're going to take it all.
Yeah.
And you absolutely see that in this movie from top to bottom, right? In the ways that Knox is talking to the team and is, you know, either hyping them up or not hyping them up, right? Like the way he addresses his players, absolutely then, you know, because it's the movie, so it needs to make sense. But it absolutely impacts the flow.
Yeah.
And makes sense. It has to make sense. Like the way you talk to your player shifts in the way that they're able to perform. So in thinking about Angels in the Outfield specifically, I loved that component, the coach arc of our manager is great. But then you also have this interesting tidbit with the Angels and this whole idea of like, you know, what is success? Where does success come from? How do we get there? Is it from within? Is it an external source? And that is like something that, especially not only in sports psychology research, but in like the applied work, you know, as a mental performance consultant, that is huge. Where does success come from? And how can I use that to improve? And that you see that with the Angels all the way through. Is like,
you not only see that with the Angels, but interestingly, it's not as literal as it is in real life, right? So the Angels are, of course, a metaphor for what you're saying, right? But it's also sort of a little on the nose with athletes commonly thanking God and Jesus, you know, from a Christian perspective. But you also have international soccer players who pray after scoring a goal, right, from Middle Eastern and Muslim countries. So, you know, it's overt in our real world where players and coaches and managers are explicitly thanking God. But in this movie, not a single soul says, I owe all of my success to God. Nobody, but it's like, it's literal.
Excuse me. I'd like to say something on behalf of George Knox.
What's your name? What's your business here?
My name is Maggie Nelson. I take care of foster kids. One of these boys is the child who can see angels. He could stand up right now and tell you exactly what's happened. And I know you just laugh at him. But when a professional football player drops to one knee to thank God after making a touchdown, nobody laughs at that. Or when a pitcher crosses himself before going to the mound, nobody laughs at that either. Seems like you're saying it's okay to believe in God, but it's not okay to believe in angels. Now, I thought they were on the same team.
Is it your belief, ma'am, that angels play baseball?
Since the All-Star break, yes. We all need somebody to watch out for us. Every kid I have ever taken care of has been looking for someone to love. An angel. You've got to have faith. You've got to believe. You've got to look inside yourself. The footprints of an angel are love. And where there is love, miraculous things can happen. I've seen it.
When you see that, we're at the kind of the tail end of the movie a bit where Maggie, the foster mom, is like, it says that exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't bat an eye when a football player takes a knee or, you know, has a cross on his helmet, but yet when a little boy is telling you that he sees angels in the outfield, we're all up in arms about it. And it's even though it is such a very literal yet indirect way of thinking about where does motivation, self-belief, confidence, like where do all those things come from? And like as a coach, you know, when you think about where does that razzle dazzle come from that you see, like when you see your players in a flow state, right? This idea that they're just unbeatable, you know, baseball, it's every time they get up to the plate and they're just, you know, next, you know, hitting it crazy, right? Or making amazing catches, whatever. And like, as a coach, you're like, yeah, that's my guy, or, you know, that's my girl in softball or something like that. But, you know, I love when Knox is like, what did it feel like when you made that crazy play?
Yeah.
Right. To try to understand how these crazy things happen. Because in sport, most of the time we just say, oh, they were just hot.
Yeah. They're
Period.
hot. They've got a hot hand.
They're hot.
Right.
Yeah.
The hot hand fallacy is strong, especially in a sport like basketball, where it's constant when action is actually going on. It's constant, right? End to end.
Yeah.
And you make a lot of split-second decisions, and in many cases, you get this person who thinks that either themselves or other people watching it, and God forbid they're gambling on the sport, right? They're in this flow state, as you say, and that kind of thinking can either do harm in the long run or do really, really well in the short run for that person. Like, it's a double-edged sword.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you're like expecting to be in flow state all the time, like you see this with athletes and they're like, I was hot one game and then ice cold the next, right?
Yeah,
the performance is really great, off the charts, however you want to define performative success. In their minds, it's off the charts. They're doing great. And then the very next game, it's not happening. They can't, make a play to save their life. They can't make the throw or whatever it is. Like, they just can't. Or, I work with a lot of runners, and it's the same thing. Like, they're like, oh, that one race was so good. I loved it. It was great. Everything was lining up into place. And then the very next race, they're like, I don't know, something happened.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good.
Right.
So
they weren't being pushed by an angel,
they were waiting for it. Yeah.
So yeah, let's dive into the sports psychology of it all in this first segment, because I like where you're going with this, right? So the idea that there is a lot of, while it's goofy and while it has that Disney inspirational tone to it, it is a good, accurate, it is a decent representation of how negativity from a coach's perspective can tank a team sport. And then on the flip side, positivity can really just turn things around. So what about the sports psychology of it all? So you were talking about the coach's communication. I know you focus on pregame speeches, but let's see if we can broaden it out to all like interactions with coaches. So in the beginning of the movie, Knox is up to his head with what he thinks are bad players, a losing season, fans just wanting his head, and their just inability to play professional baseball. So he has a pretty big tirade, and then he meets this kid who's basically his last hope at any kind of progress. And the way that Roger creates this, well, I'll call it a fantasy for the sake of how children believe things, but of course it is real within the logic of the movie. So bear with me. The fantasy that Roger creates, and he's like, this is my last chance to do anything meaningful. And if the kid says, I gotta be nice, I gotta be nice. So tell us a little bit more about that Knox in the beginning to the Knox at the end.
You got to think about, so Knox, which we see throughout the movie, we kind of get a little bit of his backstory. And again, a very good 90s baseball movie trope where we find out he had a career previously in baseball and something happened and, their career ended abruptly. And you see that like in a lot of like Major League and other things.
Yeah.
So you always have to have that so that we understand where they're coming from. But it sounds like he had a successful coaching career in Cincinnati. He was doing great. And then he's now here with the Angels. And it's just not what he wants. And you see that he's struggling because he has these high expectations for these men to do well. It's professional baseball, right? Even though it's, love them or hate them, the Angels, they're still there and they're doing baseball.
Yeah, they're doing the baseball sometimes.
I know. As a California man, right? You're a Dodgers fan through and through. Okay. So you see that he has these expectations, and his ability to communicate that is usually impacted greatly by his delivery.
Yeah.
And this is something in coach communication that's huge. We talk about there's tactical information you share. So your strategies, your techniques. I'm thinking about the opponent, the duration of the season, how wins and losses affect your overall ability to progress. You have emotional information. So that kind of like rah, like I believe in you, like let's get after it, kind of motivational type things. I want you to be calm. I want you to be cool. And then you have the delivery. So like the words that the coach says combined with how they say them. And recently in the literature, the delivery is getting a lot more attention because it's not just what coach says, but how they say it.
The viral moments are invading real life. Oh no.
Yeah, because you see that, and it's. I love talking to people about my research because as soon as I say that like phrase, and it's not just what you say, but how you say it, they go, "Oh my gosh!" And you would have thought I
that was not
crazy.
planned. That was not planned, listener.
No, and I can't even, I can't credit myself with coming up with anything new either because it's been there, like we know that.
Yeah.
And so you see that with Knox is he wants so badly for these guys to get it together, come to practice tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., be there. But he's like shouting at them and he's angry and he's flipped the table.
Yeah.
And like, how is that going to get your team to get on your train if you're going in there and trashing their space?
Yeah.
So
it is funny too. And I want to sort of ask you about this related thing. So even before that argument of the game that they lost, the actual first scene of the movie is Knox having to pull a pitcher late in the game because the pitcher's starting to give up runs or give up base hits or whatever it is. And he's going to the bullpen and we're hearing the announcer say, "Oh no, he's going to the bullpen. How's this going to end up for him?" And he asks the pitcher for the ball. And of course, as if a pitcher would ever say no to their manager and live to tell the tale on any subsequent start, the pitcher says no. And Knox ends up punching him in the face. And there's a funny sequence where, the Angels bench bullpen and bench clears to keep the two of those guys separated. But then the other team, and I forget which team it is, but they run out on the field because they're like, fight, and because that's what happens with bench clearing brawls in baseball. But the manager of that team goes, "It's not our guy," but it's too late because they're already out there and it's pandemonium, right?
Yeah.
And so Knox suffers this public humiliation because he punches his player in the face. He's trying to hurt his player, and he ends up getting ejected from the game. I think rightfully so by the umpire.
Can't hit your own players.
You can't hit your own players. Like, I know they're your own players, so like you're on the same team, but like you can't do that. And he should know better, right? But he's got a short fuse. He's got a big temper because he feels disrespected. Can you say more about how Knox's dynamic with the team is so bad that he's just like at the end of his rope?
Because that's exactly right. Like they just do not, whatever he says, they don't really care. Even
Right.
in the middle of a professional baseball game, like if you've made it to that level, obviously you've been coached by enough people and yada, yada, yada. But I think that's a really interesting component to the, the whole setup is like, this is professional baseball.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't youth. This isn't little league. This is professional. This is Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to listen to your coach in the middle of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So clearly that's indicative of some sort of something that's just not there during practice or during previous games that the team just like, they don't trust Knox and they do not trust his opinions. They do not trust the way he's managing the team. And I think this is so interesting because yet the owner like doesn't seem, at least at the beginning of the movie, he's just he's around. It's not until the Angels show up that he has an issue. So it's like he likes Knox. He thinks Knox is, he's like, turn it around, you got it. But the team doesn't feel that way. They do not like him.
Yeah.
And, when you look at research on athlete satisfaction and whether or not they enjoy just being a part of the game, liking your coach is a huge part of that. And whether or not you and your coach feel like there's a cohesiveness and just a collaboration as well, like it's so important. And especially at a professional level, like I think that collaboration piece has got to be there, but it's just not there for anybody. There's just this huge disconnect between team values, team goals, and then who are we going to listen to, right? Because at the end of the day, like Knox has a job just like that pitcher does. And Knox's job is to say, "You're done, man. Like it's not happening today." And that pitcher, for some reason, is just like, "No, I don't trust what you have to say," regardless of how that's going to affect my teammates.
Right.
I feel like I dislike you so much that I don't need to worry about my team. I'm only focused on this friction between coach and athlete.
Yeah. Is there any research about the coach-athlete relationship where sort of these types of relationships are described?
Yes, there definitely is. Like when people think coach-athlete relationship, we think of typically the 3 C's plus 1 model with Jowett.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's again you're thinking about that relationship component, and there's this through line of making sure that both the coach and the athlete are on the same page.
Okay.
And if you're on that same page, it's going to work out. If not, that's when we see some friction and how that transpires. Lots of research within collegiate athletes as well.
So
youth athletes.
what are the 3 C's plus 1?
So the 3 C's plus 1, you have closeness.
Okay.
So how close do I feel in a social component with my coach?
Yep.
Commitment.
Okay.
So how committed am I to this relationship? How committed am I to working with this coach?
Yeah.
And working together to do this thing?
Mm-hmm. Sort of a symbiotic relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you got like kind of complementarity.
Complementarity. Okay.
Yeah. So do I have strengths that my coach might not have, but do they have strengths that I might not have?
Right.
And does that make a beautiful mesh of, good, solid work together?
Yeah.
And then co-orientation. So are our goals aligned? Are my goals
Is that the
as
plus
an athlete?
1?
That's the plus 1. Yep.
Why are these not called the 4 C's now?
I don't know. I love it. I wish I could to sit down and ask Dr. Jawa like why we just tacked it on. But,
Fair enough.
But now it's just how it is. 3 C's plus 1.
All right.
And this is truly when people look at coach-athlete relationship, you're looking at this model, you're looking at a specific questionnaire of questions, to understand how athletes, usually it's kind of thinking about how athletes are thinking about the coach, but it's just as important to think about how the coach is viewing the athletes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So co-orientation is that what you just described?
Yeah, co-orientation. So the goals, are we aligned? And I think, that might be something when I think about this movie and I think about the portrayal of the coach-athlete relationship going on.
Yeah.
I just think whatever Knox's goals are and whatever goals the team have are just not aligned.
Which is weird, right?
Yeah, because you think we want to win, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody should want to win.
Right. Everyone should at least be on that same page, but it sounds like professional egos are actually on top of, I want to win this game, right? With that first pitcher and him saying, no, like you are obviously thinking about your ability to play baseball above what it would take for the team to win just because, like literally only because my manager is taking me out when I think it's too early.
Yeah, and I'm taking that as a personal slight, not as a strategic move, right? Because you also think about cohesion, group cohesion. And you got task and social. Task is like, let's think about the game. What do we need to do to win? Social is how well do we get along?
Right.
You don't need to have social cohesion to be really task-oriented as a group. You can be really cohesive as a group and win and be successful and not be best friends.
Yeah.
And I think here in this case, you see in the locker room that there's a lot of social cohesion going on.
Yeah. I think
Less
they all
task.
I think the vast majority of them have a good working and friendly relationship with one another. We don't see them outside of the stadium setting except for the press conference room. Otherwise, everyone's always in a baseball uniform except for Knox. And so the only times we see them are when they are acting friendly and funny to one another, social cohesion. Yeah, but there is some misalignment, especially for a character, again, like Bass, right? So we talk about the pitcher, Neil, maybe. I don't remember who the first pitcher is in the movie. But, besides him, you see Bass, and he's, one of the starting pitchers, and he thinks very highly of himself, but is only shown to be like a complete doofus and dunce and like not a smart person.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think they break up the ego really nicely with like making him just look like an absolute goofball. But you got to think about to take up that much time during a game and just to be like, this is my time. You have to really think very highly of yourself and your skills
I feel you
to
on
really
that one.
Embody that kind of like, I'm going to take up all this space.
I gotta take him out.
No. Please just let him try.
He's all used up. He can't do it by himself.
Yes, he can. All he has to do is believe.
And Knox will pull Mel Clark. All I can say is, it's about time.
I got nothing left.
Yeah, you do. You got 1 strike left. You got an angel with you right now. Just got here, and he's gonna help.
Kid sees an angel?
Yeah, he must. That's the signal.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't believe it. Knox will let Clark stay in to pitch to Kesey. This is not smart baseball. This is ridiculous.
We see this progression change, like I said. So talk to us a little bit more about the Knox we see at the end of the movie.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, like we see this guy that's focused on developing relationships and like supporting his athletes and caring about them on a deeper level a little bit, you know, like he's all of a sudden not just focused on the wins and the losses, but he's like thinking about how to kind of develop this group as a whole and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And so he's not only yelling about needing to win and needing to practice more and needing to do all these things. Instead, he's yelling at them and just like looking at them and saying, I believe in you guys and I believe that we can do this.
Yeah.
Which is huge because like at the beginning of the movie, he does not believe in them all and says that.
Right.
He says, he's like, what a bunch of, you know, just like absolute dorks and losers in my locker room,
right.
you know? And then at the very end, he like intentionally is looking at every player and is like, we can do this. You know, and that's like when you look at a lot of, you know, research about what athletes want to see from coaches, they want to see a coach that's genuine and authentic. And if your coach is exactly who they are and looks you in the eye and says that they believe in you, that goes so far, so far,
wow.
as opposed to some coach that's trying to be something that they're not.
Yeah. You kind of hear it sort of, I don't know, 2/3 into the movie when Knox is starting to get on board with Rodgers and the Angels. He's like, go on out there. You'll do great. It's like so awkward.
It doesn't feel right in his body.
Yeah. He's like, gross. Get this ick off of me. But he gets better at it. Like you see Danny Glover actually taking the time, which I think he did. He's one of the, obviously he's a very good actor, but within the context of the acting in this movie, he did a phenomenal job, just like sort of raising the bar for the rest of them. They didn't quite get there with him, but he certainly,
they tried.
He certainly did. Like you believe he is spitting mad in the morning in that, not in the morning, excuse me, in the beginning where he's yelling at him after that loss, to like how he says to, which gives me chills every time, Mel, there are no angels. You're on your own this time. And it's just like, ooh, the Danny Glover doing the effort it took to show that he goes from this curmudgeon to trying to be supportive and reinforcing, positively reinforcing. And he just feels icky to him.
Oh, yeah.
And then he like fully embraces, I'm going to be your dad, Roger kind of vibes, right?
No, you asked initially how I thought the movie went, and that ending is a little abrupt, but other than that, I think it holds up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see that, like, my sister and I quote this all the time. Like when JP goes, you used to be Mel Clark.
Yeah.
And like, we love that. But I mean, like, even Knox is like, you're washed up, you're trash, you're just here until you retire.
Right.
And then, and of course it has to be that at the end, right? It's got to be that where he goes, hey, you got this. Right. There are no angels, but I know that you can do it. Yeah. And like, as an athlete, like even at the professional level, I personally believe like at any level, like athletes just need to hear that there's somebody that's in their corner just unconditionally. And like, that's what I love about my job as like a mental performance consultant is I get to be that person for them because sometimes that's all they need. And it's cool. It's very cool to see that.
I love that. Yeah. I try to do that with my students too. I really do. When they are just getting bogged down, you know, your favorite subjects were research methods and stats in graduate school. You can't lie.
Low key though. Yeah, absolutely.
I know. You didn't have to lie. You know, they're struggling with that kind of, with that really challenging material and they feel lost. They seek guidance. And I'm just like, I think you can really do this.
Yeah.
It seems scary, but I think you can do that. And I think that sort of validating orientation just is what everyone needs, to be honest with you. So like we all just need to feel sometimes that other people are like, yeah, I see you living this life. It's tough, but I think you could do it.
Angels or no angels.
Right? Angels or no angels.
You know, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
God. If there's a God, if you're a man or a woman, if you're listening, I'd really, really like a family. My dad says that'll only happen if the Angels won the pennant. The baseball team, I mean. So, maybe you could help him win a little. Amen.
A woman, too.
So let's put a scientific spin on this. Could this actually happen?
Ooh, I actually love this question.
It's sort of a oddball question that I sometimes ask on this show. So congratulations.
Oh, I'm here for it. Yeah, honestly. And I was thinking about this too, just a lot, because for some athletes, when you ask them, you're sitting there in your conference room and you're talking about life and sports and how it's going. And they're just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but you're literally an elite athlete. And you're telling me that you don't believe in your ability to succeed. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, whoa, that's tough.
Yeah.
And you say, you're doing all this training. Like I can sit there, as this third party and be like, you're working your butt off in training. All your practices are going great. You're going to lift. You're doing the nutrition. You're getting sleep. You're thriving in school. Like I can, count all these different ways that they are doing great and how all of that will pay off. And they just say like, it's not going to happen for me. And that's heartbreaking. Cause like, again, I see it. I'm like, you're busting your butt to thrive. But that piece of belief is just like really not there. And so, you sit and you kind of chew on that and say like, why is it hard for you to do all these things, but not fully embrace it and believe that it could happen, right? JP, it could happen. But, it's really tough. It's really, really tough because it's all, sports at a certain level, it becomes all about the mechanics and less about the other things, the fluffy things people call them, like having fun and, finding success and because it's all about numbers, right? Runners especially, it's all about hitting your mark. Baseball, right? Even baseball right now, it's all about what are your stats? What's your stat sheet like?
I mean, to be fair, baseball was always stats heavy because there's so many things to count during a game and there's a lot of downtime to count them.
I know I can't go to a baseball game without getting my scorecard because that's what my grandpa taught me to do. So
awesome.
But even, as a fan, you want to feel part of it. But you think about that, but then you ask about things like faith and religious experience and all these things, because at the end of the day, an athlete is just an individual that's made up of multiple identities. They're students, their sons, their daughters, right? They're everybody.
Right.
And for some of them, faith is super important. And so there's been a little bit of research, not a ton, but a little bit in terms of how your religious identity impacts your ability to engage in mental performance consulting a little bit easier because you have this established sense of trust in something that you don't necessarily know what the outcome is, And so this idea of could there be angels? If your mind is trained to think that there could be angels, there could be angels, and that could be your source of confidence and self-belief. So
and
it was a long walk for short answer.
It's great because I mean, you're describing a classic placebo effect, a very classic placebo effect, wherein the ability for the mind to create its reality, because we don't perceive objective reality, we perceive, and I'm using, I should say, we don't experience an objective reality, we perceive an adjacent reality to objective reality. And so the ability for our brain to create the reality in which we live, and for the vast majority of people, that is shared. We're all adjacent to the same objective reality. For some, it's not. And for others, it is a situation where that perception is changed in some way, and it's usually in the negative direction. Of course, it could be in the positive direction too. You have people who have delusions of grandeur and all of that stuff, but you've got the depressed side, right? And how those reinforcing thought patterns are self-reinforcing, in fact. And so they get stuck in these absolutely enormous placebo effects because they're not performing, as you say, at their top level. So they attempt to fill that with another type of thinking, which is a different set of beliefs and self-reinforcing, right? What you refer to as faith or spirituality in some way, some supernatural quality to the world. And it's not an aspect of my perceived reality, but it's sort of out there for me to just think about abstractly, right? So belief in God and the belief that God is helping me do this sport at this moment right now, because that is what I need to break that negative thought pattern, right? It's sort of thought patterns are competing with one another, and we bring in this idea of some supernaturalness. and in this case, in the movie, it's angels, right? So it's a Christian themed supernatural piece, right? And it just so happens the team name is Angels, right? I think there was some literal synergy going on with the idea, right? It's a very low hanging fruit.
So kind of like what you're saying in terms of placebos and just kind of this idea of stability in terms of like looking for patterns and just having it reinforce in some potential way. Dr. Robin Veely, she talked about a certain number of myths that we have to confidence. And I think you really see the theme of confidence throughout this movie. But in terms of
I dig it.
Where does confidence come from? And one of the myths is that confidence is either just something that you have or you don't have.
Okay.
You either have it or you don't. And her whole approach is talking about, no, like everybody's got confidence. You might have low confidence.
Right.
For sure.
It's a continuum.
Right. But it's something that can be developed. It's something that you can work on, just like your athletic skills. Like it is something that, takes time and takes energy. And I think when we think about control and causality and supernatural forces and all these things, right, like we cannot control everything. And so sometimes as an athlete, it's so much easier to just be like, oh, well, I just didn't have it today. So that's why things didn't go good or whatever. Right. But then if that keeps happening, it gets harder for you to say, oh, well, it wasn't my day today. And then it's just not your week. And then it's the Friends theme song, not your week, your month, or your year.
Right.
And it's hard. And so then you fall into this pitfall of confidence is something that I just don't have, period.
Okay.
Where, you see that with this team that it could have been very easy for them to be like, we just aren't good, full stop.
Yeah.
Period. No matter what we do, we're just not good. But you see that it's something that the smallest thing of like believing in one amazing play, two amazing plays in a game is enough to absolutely turn everything around.
Yes. And
everything changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to connect that to something that baseball players are like notorious for, right? Which is, and not to say that other sports and other players aren't superstitious, but baseball players are like known superstitious, and like the OG superstitious ones, at least that like started pervading common knowledge. I don't know. It's a very old sport, so I could imagine that they have that crown. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, so the idea of superstitious behavior and the fact that one play or two play, as you say, can spark that learning, that stimulus generalization of like, oh, the one thing that they did right then and there led to that play. And so we just need to do that same thing. And we create rituals around that, right? So they all tap the pole inside the clubhouse as the game ended, and one of them says, why do you keep tapping that pole? It's not gonna, you guys know it doesn't do anything. And it's like, we do it because it's good luck, right? And the feeling of luck is tied considerably to one's feeling of confidence.
Oh, absolutely.
Good luck is related to high confidence, and bad luck is related to low confidence. And I think, they engage in the superstitious behavior. And I will say that Bass and his pre-mound slide and all of the slapping the sandbag against his shins is all part of his superstitions. And his weird wind-up for his pitches is also just part of it all. And there's one big one that when I first learned about it, I was like, really? This sounds terrible. Is when players develop a superstition around what's in their mouths. So like, I can only have, bubble gum or whatever, or I have to be chewing on sunflower seeds, or that's something that's still kind of a problem is chewing tobacco, blah, 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 that kind of stuff, right? So they're doing all of these rituals because that helps support these beliefs that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. The pre-performance routine is something that like most mental performance consultants will probably talk to an athlete about and be like, what are you doing before games? Yeah. And what's always interesting too is sometimes you get athletes that, and performers in general, that just like don't spend a lot of time thinking about why they think. So what I would love to do is ask Bass, like, why do you do that? Like, straight up, why the shins with the bag, and why is it 3 times that you pull the glove down before you throw the ball? Like, because he must have developed that somewhere.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but why do you do that thing that you do? And like, that's the most important part of these routines and these superstitions, because it helps us feel like in a world where we can't control anything, I can control that.
Yeah.
And so then if everything else goes wrong, it's like, well, I did my, like, because literally in, first pitch, someone's like knocking it way out into the outfield,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's not like he's throwing strikes. Like,
he's not a very good pitcher.
No, but he does that same windup every time, because if for some reason he didn't and everything falls apart, he can point and say, well, that's why.
Yeah.
That's why it went wrong.
Absolutely.
Hey, kid. How you doing?
Fine. How?
Hey, kiddo, sharp outfit. I wish I had one.
Thanks. Gee, I am glad to see you. I was afraid you guys wouldn't show up today since, a lot of people know about the Angels now.
No one's coming. Championships have to be won on their own. It's a rule.
Well, then, what are you doing here?
I came here to check on Mel. He's coming up soon. He's going to be one of us.
You mean he's...
He's smoked for years. It's always a mistake. He's got 6 months left. He doesn't know anything's wrong yet.
No.
Don't you worry. He's well taken care of. You concentrate on your own life now. We expect great things from you, kid. We'll all be watching. Remember that. Even though you can't see us, we're always watching.
So how would you rate the use of angels as the mode of magic and superstitions, save for the fact that the team name is Angels, and of course they use angels. We already went over that. But is that the only reason though? Is it only angels as the mode of magic and supernaturalness? Is it only angels because the team name is Angels, or could we see some other kind of magic? That's
an interesting question. And I wonder if it's, partially to do with, obviously like Roger, mostly, right? Like he was wishing on stars and praying to God, if there is a God, like you said, and asking for help. And I love it because he goes, it'd be really great if the Angels won the pennant, the baseball team, Like he has to clarify that he's talking about the baseball team, the Angels.
Right, because if God is, hearing the word angels, it's an ambiguous word, right? So, he's going to have a bias toward one meaning. It's called meaning dominance. Then the baseball team that he doesn't frequently think about because they suck.
They're not great. I honestly have no idea how they did this most recent year, but I was doing some research, and so funny. I was talking to my sister about this, and she goes, "Did you know that like 5 years after this movie, they actually did good?" And I was like, "That's not the stat you think it is."
It took 5 years, and that was about the time that Disney purchased them.
That is what I've heard.
Yeah, and so the reason why they did so well that is because Disney purchased them the year before. They invested in players.
See, you got to invest in your program. Like if you don't put any money into it, like it's not.
And Disney could do it because even in the 1990s, Disney was massive.
Yeah, and absolutely.
And so they wanted to bring. What happens when people come to Anaheim is they go to Disneyland.
Exactly. And if you're right there, I'm pretty sure like the Disneyland half marathon runs through the ballpark and everything.
Absolutely.
So they're making that link.
They are not that far apart at all.
No.
You could walk between the two if you were adventurous. That's how close they are. Yeah. And so this was, not only synergistic, as I said, but just like a shrewd business move on their part. They're like, everyone loves this movies because these catchphrases are so good. Like when the Angels win the pennant, can you believe that? Those silly buggers, right? And they're like, no, we could do this.
They're like, what if the Angels won the pennant? That'd be crazy.
Yeah. And they invested in players and they did well.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But back to your question in terms of like angels is the modality for all of these things, for our superstitious, interceding and etc. Like I think it's very compelling because it kind of, helps you. When it's funny, absolutely right, to see the Angels pick somebody up and fly them all the way to catch a ball, or giving a shoulder massage to a pitcher.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's goofy for sure. But it also is very compelling because like there are just some things that like we just straight up don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They do not make sense at all. And sometimes it's almost as if as if someone is pushing you. That, you talk to athletes and they say, oh, someone is pushing me or pulling me or whatever. And, and it's crazy. It was a really crazy feeling and I can't explain it, so it's taking
dissociated.
Exactly. These stories from sport media where you have this inextricable feeling of craziness and then you thrive. And it's like, well, what if that crazy feeling was an angel? It makes a really compelling, nice, funny visual for a movie. But I love too, when we see the angels, right? And who gets to see the angels? As the audience, we get to see the angels every time they show up. Right. But if you notice in their montage, when they're actually thriving, and of course, like who doesn't love a good sport montage when your team's winning and whatever.
Absolutely.
But they don't show up as often as you would think. You see some really good plays, quote unquote. You see some really good plays where you don't actually see an angel there. You just see young Matthew McConaughey making a crazy good catch and getting the ball in. You see him making these rolling dives, but since that first angel, you don't really see too many others out in the outfield with him.
Yeah, they focus on a few players in this montage, like kind of one at a time, some with angels, some without. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like supposed to be the duration of the season. So you kind of wonder how active were these angels after that point.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that they were betting angels and they were betting on the angels.
Yes.
And so games that they were losing, they're like, well, we gotta give them some help so we get some help, if you know what I mean. And then they could do it. But sometimes, lightning can strike someplace twice and they could win games on their own merit.
It's true. It's true. You never know. Christopher Lloyd had to tell the other angels to like chill for a little bit. He was like, please stop.
Yeah, exactly. They're on to us. They're going to believe a man can fly. And that's no good, right? You have to be an angel to fly.
Yep.
So
I was talking with my husband and literally Logan, as we addressed earlier on this. And he just goes, do you know how many games you have to win? Like consecutively, if you're at last place before the All-Star break,
right?
How many games you have to win to all of a sudden be in playoff contention?
Yes.
So
also, this is
the time frame doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. So you're right about that. But also, the writers of the movie must have heard like, the Yankees win the pennant. The Yankees win the pennant. And they're like, oh, so they've won a lot of World Series. So that must mean like they won the championship. But in baseball, the championship is not winning the league as it is in all other leagues. Winning the championship is winning the league. But no, you got to win the championship of your league and not the sport writ large. AL versus NL within a league of baseball, as is in the name MLB. You get them rising through all of that, right? Competing with the people in their division because the division structure was already in the mid-90s, and competing with within their league, doing a handful of interleague play with like the Dodgers for one, and maybe the Padres for another, and then like moving up through the standings, as you said. But then the game at the end is so unclear because winning the pennant is winning the league championship and not the World Series. And they win the pennant because that's what the dad said. And that's fine. But like the World Series still comes next.
But we don't get to see that.
We don't get to see the World Series.
It's not like Fever Pitch where they had to go back and refilm the ending because they actually won or something.
Yes,
the
Red Sox actually won. Yeah, that's the one thing. As watching it as an adult, I didn't understand this as a kid. I'll be honest with you, but as an adult, I'm like that. No,
but there's a great point confusing. That like just the media like always you think like 1940s like the Yankees won it, and it's always the pennant. It is always. I remember one baseball game. Or not baseball game, but like one season of baseball where my parents were, and it was the 2004, World Series Cardinals debacle. We don't need to get into it, but my parents literally, I remember them as a kid, they'd be like, oh, that was the year the Cardinals won the pennant. And like, never have they ever said anything about the Cardinals winning the pennant ever since. Like that was a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
Like, but I remember that year they're like, the Cardinals won the pennant. And I was like, for sure. And we literally have a physical pennant that we hung up in our garage. But like, as a kid, you're just like, I thought it was about the World Series, not what?
Right.
It's confusing. If you don't know baseball structure, you don't get it.
Because their last opponent is the Tigers. They would not be facing the Tigers in the 1994 World Series against the Tigers because the AL and the NL were firmly set. Very similar to, except for the Astros, like basically what they are now. And Detroit and LA or California, I should say, at this time were in the same league. So it could only be the league championship series. And of course, we're only watching the last game of however many games, right? Because in 1994,
right, absolutely.
In 1994, the league championship series was already 7 games.
So much baseball.
And I love it because they're playing at Angel Stadium, and they beat Detroit by number of wins because they have home field advantage for whatever game this is of a 7-game series.
Yeah, right. And it's this specific game where Angels can't intervene either.
Yeah, it's
right because the Angels don't help you win championships, and yet what about all of those other other games that led up to this? Where were the Angels there?
Right. Yes. Mysteries upon mysteries that will never be solved.
They didn't ask us to poke and prod this much, but we're gonna. That's the point.
They didn't make it for us, and I think that's fine. The parents at the time were like, what is this?
Yeah.
That JP kid is so annoying.
No, he's the best. It could happen. You never know.
So annoying. Probably because he's a bad child actor. No, I like the character JP, but
yeah, he's no Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
No,
though, you can't compete.
So when are we going to be a family, Dad? When this impossible task happens. Bet.
He says, "Say psych right now. I'm ready."
Do that tonight. Praying on that. So good.
It's so funny, and then he's like, but they've done it, Dad.
Oh, that's a heartbreaking scene. We're not going to touch that in this episode because I think we hit all the things I wanted to in the sports psych, and there hasn't been a sports psych full episode on the show before. So, Corinne, you represent the first. Not to say that this is the first baseball movie on the podcast, but you take the cake on sports psych stuff. So awesome.
Sports psych matters. It's so fun. It's so cool. Even if we're in kinesiology.
I want to thank Corinne Hobbs for joining me to discuss Angels in the Outfield. Before we say goodbye, Corinne, is there anything that you'd like to talk about, plug? Where can folks find out more about your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would be remiss if I didn't, plug my program here at Michigan State University. It's been a great experience for sure. Taking a interesting look at kind of the theoretical side to sport and performance, which has really been great.
Cool. Yeah.
But if anyone's, interested in like looking for specific resources for sports psychology related things, during my time here, I'm part of the Institute for the Study of Youth Sports, where we have research and do outreach and provide a lot of different resources for coaches, parents in the area, or just, abroad, wherever you are. We have a website. You can check it out.
I will
lots of
link
resources
those in the show notes.
Oh, yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically about, different ways to help make youth sport a good and solid experience for all. That's kind of our goal, is to provide leadership, scholarship, and outreach to kind of transform youth sport to be a little more positive of a space.
Nice.
So absolutely that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone that's, interested in, mental performance consulting can find me on LinkedIn. I love it.
Okay.
I love talking about it. Even if you're looking for grad school, if any grad students are listening to this and you're like, what is applied sports psychology? Find me on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I will happily chat about that. And then, I just have a couple articles online. If you look up Corinne T. Zimmerman pregame speech, they'll pop up. So always appreciate a read.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is going to do it for this episode. Thanks again, Corinne.
Thank you so much. It was a great time.
Until the next one, thanks for listening.